Things possibly returning a bit closer to normalcy across the Big Ten. Case in point, Penn State defeats Rutgers 23-7. The Nittany Lions get a second win on the season. We got Tim Aiden on the line from Black Shoe Diaries on SB Nation. Please join him and the rest of the staff there covering Penn State athletics. Tim, how you doing today?
Feeling good, Mark. 2-game win streak, first consecutive wins of the season. So, given the dismal start, the first 5 weeks, I'm feeling pretty good. I normally don't say that about a 2-5 record, but 2020, here we are, Mark.
You say that about a 2-5 record when it was 0-5. That's the one time that you do say it. So, win against Michigan, win against Rutgers. The defense only gives up 7 after giving up just 17 to the Maize and Blue last weekend. So maybe we start with the defense. And again, let's remember, everybody, when we outline this 16-point win against Rutgers, that it's not Rutgers circa 2019 back to about 2015. It's not a great team. No, Rutgers is not a great team, but they are much, much improved and much more capable than what they've been in quite some time.
Absolutely. Greg Schiano is clearly the shot in the arm that the Rutgers program needed. And, one thing you can say is they absolutely bust their tails so week in and week out, which is not something that I saw from them the last several years. So that alone made them a much improved team. And Schiano did a fine job bringing in guys like Sean Gleason to run his offense and from Oklahoma State. And also he definitely hit the transfer portal for some key guys like Aaron Cruikshank at receiver, Noah Vedral, his quarterback, who didn't have the best game today, but he has been big in their couple wins this year, and even in the overtime loss to Michigan. So obviously, very improved bunch. This is not the Rutgers teams that Penn State teams have passed could just sleepwalk their way through and still win by 2 or 3 touchdowns in the end. This is a game where Penn State they actually came out like a team that felt like they had something to play for, that that was taking Rutgers seriously, and it showed. Especially the way the defense played. I mean, they did a good job, not allowing Rutgers to beat them horizontally with sweeps or screen passes too much. And what really stuck out to me was twice on 4th and short, they send in Johnny Langdon to try to, who's basically like Rutgers' version of Penn State's Will Levis, their QB run specialist, brought him in to try to just pick up that yard and move the chains, and Penn State stuffed him both instances. So, that's kind of, seeing that, and then seeing the way Penn State just ran the ball on Rutgers today, especially in the beginning when they jumped out to that 17-0 lead in the first half. I had a feeling that maybe come fourth quarter, they were really going to just wear down that Rutgers defense. And it gave me a lot of vibes to the last year's Cotton Bowl, where Penn State essentially did the same thing to Memphis, just ran them ragged to the very end. And sure enough, we're talking before we hit record, we're looking up the run stats from today's game and the Cotton Bowl. And so Penn State ran the ball 57 times. They picked up 248 yards net rushing. That's actually 4 more carries than they had in the Cotton Bowl when they carried it 53 times. Now, granted, the Cotton Bowl, they had a little more success, 396 yards on the ground as a team, and a few more touchdowns. But as far as like just dominating time and possession, controlling the ball, Penn State did a solid job overall. And I think that was that and the performance of the defense were the difference makers today.
Parker Washington only had 1 catch, but it was a 29-yard touchdown from Sean Clifford, who hit on, I believe, 15 of 22. And back to the rushing attack. We talked a lot of Kevon Lee last week. He had a nice day on 17 carries, 95 yards. Devin Ford, 11 for 65. Will Levis coming in, backup quarterback, but 17 carries in the way that they're using him currently. So how do you feel about this latest configuration of Penn State offense? So run heavy, limited in the passing game, and the way they're using Will Levis as well.
So I'll get to Little Levis in a little bit, but I think what I've been seeing in the last couple weeks is, excuse me, offensive coordinator Kirk Shiraka actually running the system based on the guys that he has, not necessarily the guys that he wishes he had, like he had at Minnesota, for example. So I think with Penn State, right now, the way the offense is, the way the quarterbacks, I think a run heavy scheme mixed in with some short and medium range throws is the way to go. That's what got them success at Michigan last week. Got them success today. I gotta say hats off to Devin Ford. When they actually ended up starting in the first series, I was thinking, what the heck? Why isn't Kevon Lee starting here? He was, he had the best game of his young career last week at Michigan. But to Ford's credit, he ran well. Hit 65 yards, 11 carries, had a touchdown right before halftime, pushed that lead to 17-0. And but Kevon Lee, they went in the end zone, but he got darn near 100 yards, 95 in total on 17 carries. And as far as the Levis package, so I think I noticed even Franklin said this in the press conference. They're gonna have to start having Levis throw a few times to make defenses respect him more. It was effective early on in the game, but later on, at times it seemed like it would, Rutgers was ready for it. Although he did pick up some critical first downs late in the game when Penn State was just trying to run down some clock. So, but they do need to let Levis throw the ball a few times. And he's shown, he showed it in the Nebraska game when he substituted for an ineffective Sean Clifford that he is capable of throwing the ball, making some big pass plays. So I think it had to do a lot with the weather. The weather was not good in Piscataway. It was very windy. I think it was a nor'easter hitting the East Coast. So, very windy. I think there was some rain at times too, because I know the receivers had some trouble catching the ball early on, and Devin Ford actually fumbled the opening kick. It kind of slipped out of his hands. So that may have had something to do with it. But I would like to see them going forward. If they're going to keep throwing Levis in there, they got to have him throw the ball a few times to get defenses to respect that. If they get them to respect that, then that makes the Levis run even more lethal, more effective. So that's my one criticism with the current offense and how, what they can do to get better. The defense, again, hard to complain much about them. The only complaint is maybe there were a couple of times where they should have gotten home with a sack on Noah Vedral, and so on the one drive where Rutgers got in the end zone, there was a I think 3rd and long situation, and they should have. They looked like the pocket was collapsing. They looked like they were going to get to Vedral, but then Vedral kind of escapes around a couple tackles, and then just tiptoes across the first down marker, barely picks up the first down. And then later on that same drive is a 4th and goal with like the 3. Once again, Penn State's defense rushes Vedral, forced him to run for his life to the sideline, and he just kind of throws up a prayer to Bull Melton, who, to his credit, made the catch. But there were at least, I think, 3 Penn State jerseys near Bo Melton who could have at least, maybe tried to get a hand on the ball. But no, like Melton makes the catch like uncontested. So that was kind of irksome. It feels like if they had just maybe made a play or two here and there, we're talking about a shutout for Brent Pry's defense, which, given how the D had looked most of the season, is not something, I would have seen coming.
So in a game in which both quarterbacks threw just over 100 yards passing, if for one thing, Penn State threw the 1 interception in the game, both teams lost 1 fumble. If you look at defensive numbers, they both had 2 sacks. They had 7 and they had 6 tackles for loss. So almost identical statistically across the board, except for one paramount foundational portion of this game. Penn State holds Rutgers to 2.6 yards per carry, 83 yards rushing. Penn State rolls it up for 248 at 4.5 yards per carry. The ground game and the rush defense won this for Penn State. Tim Aiden on the line from Black Shoe Diaries. Penn State wins over Rutgers. The Nittany Lions have their final date of the regular season against Michigan State in Happy Valley before they determine who Penn State lines up against on Big Ten Championship weekend. Tim, we appreciate you stopping by as always for a little post-game recap on the Nittany Lions.
Sure thing. Happy to do this, Mark.